Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited. I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly through these calls. Bottom line, the important and essential information for you. We know you're busy people and you have other things to do. We have a standard format. We spend a few minutes talking about the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar, which in our view is the base currency for these other pre-valued currencies. We'd like to spend a few minutes talking about the program we've put into place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started. Today is April 24th, 2019. We still find ourselves in pre-RV purgatory. There are some things going on in Iraq, and so let's talk a little bit about them. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of these currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or the purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information that we think is relevant. The first relevant issue would be a reasonable or realistic window for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. We have a rather wide berth at this point in time. On the upside, potentially, we're looking at a reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar, in our opinion, of between 60 and 90 days, and we'll get into the reasons for that. But failing the successful completion of some internal political issues in Iraq, we could be looking at the revaluation, or rather the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar, pushed all the way to January of 2020. So that's another 7-8 months out. I know that's not good news, but for those of us that have been holding currencies for as long as a decade, that's really not that much time. The reason for this sort of delay in the reinstitution of the currency has to do with rather short-term political chaos going on in Iraq. There's a lot going on, and a lot of this stuff needs to get done before the CBI can even entertain the possibility of a reinstitution. Prime Minister Mahdi and the Parliament have still not resolved the confirmation of the remaining 4 ministerial seats. There is another parliamentary session scheduled for next week. Whether Mahdi will present just 1 or 2 ministers, or whether they're going to present 4 ministers for all 4 seats and try to get as many through as possible, we as yet don't know. But the Sadrists, the largest coalition within the parliament, have made it clear that Mahdi has until the end of June to get his government in place, and failing that, he could be looking at a no-confidence vote, which means we'd start all over again, and that would virtually guarantee the earliest possible reinstatement to be January of 2020. But it's entirely possible that either these 4 ministers will be seated, or as a stopgap measure, Mahdi might ask the parliament to just accept interim appointments for 60 or 90 days. So we'll have to wait and see. The only thing we know for sure is that they do not intend to reinstate the currency until the government is seated. The Sadrists have also nominated a reformer as governor of the CBI, Sadiq Naim, to replace al-Awlaki, who they consider to be rather corrupt and incompetent in his dealings. So that's another issue that has to be dealt with. Now, Iraq is scheduling a symposium in Baghdad to negotiate and implement their investment strategy for international investors. And what's interesting about this initial symposium is the 2 invitees are Iran and Saudi Arabia, which are, of course, enemies. So what would be the advantage to that? I think the Iraqis are trying to make a statement, sort of calling it a coming out party. I think what they're trying to say is, look, Iraqis are almost entirely Shia. Iran, our neighbor, is a Shia nation. We don't necessarily agree with a lot of the things and a lot of the behavior of the Iranians, but Iran is a sister country, and so we will be doing business with Iran. On the other hand, Iraq is then looking at the mullahs of Iran and saying, we are a sovereign nation, and we intend to continue our relationship with you, but we also intend to develop relationships with other nations, even nations like Saudi Arabia, with which you have no love for. So I view that as a good thing. I view that as Iraq in their own way trying to say, look, we're trying to get along with everybody, and we're going to do what needs to be done. There are also tentatively scheduled subsequent negotiations in terms of internal investments with a number of other countries, China, Japan, Europe, and, of course, the United States. The Parliament is also in the process of reforming their investment law, and they should be voting shortly on the new industrial cities law. The only way I could probably describe what's going on in Iraq is to refer to the 1890s in the United States with the Industrial Revolution. Of course, the Industrial Revolution has come and gone, but Iraq is primarily a centralized agrarian society, and what they're trying to do is to better decentralize, urbanize, and, of course, develop their technologies and basically enter the 21st century. So, these are the things that take time to get done. And the unfortunate last fly in the ointment is the Kurdistani regional government has reared its ugly head again, and they have announced that they're going to revisit another movement for secession from Iraq. So all of these things combined mean that there is a lot on the plate of the CBI and the government of Baghdad, and they're going to need to resolve some of these issues before they can entertain the reinstatement of their currency. Now, on the upside, all of this could get resolved in the next 60 to 90 days, or there could be an agreement among the parties to let certain things be unresolved and to go ahead and reinstate their currency. But again, if any of this really falters, we're probably looking realistically at pushing this thing all the way back to January 2020. I certainly hope that doesn't happen, but it is what it is. I, along with many people that I've discussed this with, have invested in the dinar on the long haul, understanding that this could take some time. But given the leverage involved here, even if this were pushed to 2020, anyone that purchased Iraqi dinar, whether it was last week or in 2003 when the provisional currencies first came out, will see a significant return on their investment. Well, that's basically the information I have on the reval and the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. Now, that does provide additional time for those of you that have not gotten their affairs in order or may not understand what that involves. To that end, Trusts Unlimited has put a turnkey program in place to assist you. It's a two-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a pre-RV package of asset protection trusts with the assignment of your pre-valued currencies on paper to that trust package. Post-RV involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar and these other currencies. So let's start with Phase 1, which is the establishment of your package of asset protection trusts and the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust product. Very simply, a trust is a legal instrument one can establish to hold, to manage, and to protect assets. Trust can fall into some basic categories. For example, a trust can be revocable, or a trust can be irrevocable. In order to have the asset protection you are going to need and want, you are going to need to establish a package of irrevocable trusts, and that package must be established prior to the revaluation of these currencies. Now, why is Trusts Unlimited chosen to create this package of irrevocable trusts? Because there are a lot of instruments out there that are purported to provide asset protection. For example, you could establish an LLC or a sub-S corporation. They do provide some asset protection. As a matter of fact, LLC literally means limited liability company. Now, LLCs and sub-S corporations are very good entities for establishing a business, but they only provide very limited asset protection. The best they can do is segregate your business assets from your private assets. But the great weakness with the LLC and the sub-S corporations is that courts have ruled that if an LLC or a sub-S corporation is owned in majority, i.e. 51% of the stock by one individual or a closely held family, that LLC or sub-S corporation can be pierced for civil litigation. So that's going to be an inappropriate use of those two entities for this purpose, protecting your currencies. Now, there are single trust irrevocable products out there. The problem with a single trust is very simple. If everything you own is in one trust, that means it's all owned by one single entity. So if any asset within that trust gets involved in civil litigation, because that entity also owns other assets, everything in that trust would be vulnerable to a civil proceeding. So that's not going to work. The solution is to establish a package of trusts where your currencies are protected pre-RV, where their conversion to U.S. dollars is protected post-RV, and where your assets that you own, particularly the assets that you would acquire after the revaluation of these currencies, are each placed in their own separate sub-trust. That, by definition, would legally limit any potential civil litigation loss. Now, over the course of the 7 or 8 years that I've been with Trusts Unlimited, we have had literally dozens of trust products and asset protection instruments presented to us by other individuals for our opinion. And, I have to be completely honest with you. I have seen absolutely nothing that comes even close to the asset protection provided by our trust product. Now, obviously, I'm an individual that has a preference, but the facts are the facts. I have seen absolutely nothing, period, end of sentence, that comes close to the asset protection trust package that we've established. It's important that you not only establish this package, but that you do so prior to the revaluation of these currencies for a number of reasons, and I'm going to review them with you. First, by establishing our asset protection trust package, your privacy and your anonymity will be preserved because assets held within this irrevocable trust package are sealed, and the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. The second reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it will allow you to avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you are holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will probably spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would be time-consuming, it would be frustrating, and frankly, it would probably cost you more than our asset protection trust package. On the other hand, if your trust package is in place and your pre-RV currencies are assigned to that trust package, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of the revaluation from yourself personally to the trust. Now, why is that important from an asset protection and legal standpoint? First, there's less than a 10% chance of an IRS audit of this if this revaluation were to occur within our trust package. But most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they can't do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is if you plan on gifting currency to family and friends in certain situations. Philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to gift currencies to family and friends prior to the revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves or giving them the lump sum after you've conducted the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of the trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give any of these individuals the post-RV lump sum, you can gift to them through our specially designed gift sub-trust. And again, ours is a package of trusts. We created this special gift sub-trust. I do not believe that a gift sub-trust of this nature exists in the United States. With this gift sub-trust, not only will your friends and family whom you've gifted have their U.S. dollars protected along with you, but because their money is within this gift sub-trust, you will be able to manage, invest, and distribute the money to those individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you two quick scenarios. Scenario number one, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now that estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with a probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years, and in some cases even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government will assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 55%. Scenario number two, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate. There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to 100% of their inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV asset protection trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. What does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transferred it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. You transfer those currencies to our trust package. Those currencies subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very good case and very deep pockets, because this trust is structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once this prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000, the value of the property at the time you transferred it to the trust, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there is an asset protection benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a legal strategy called segregation of assets, and this is how it would work. Again, we'll use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to the trust. They subsequently revalue for 25 million, and now that you have 25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of new cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by your master trust. Now, why is this critically important from an asset protection standpoint? Well, I'll give you an example. Let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident, the accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important. All of your other assets are safely protected in the other sub-trusts. Now, why are those assets protected and insulated from that civil litigation? Because under the law, those separate sub-trusts are separate legal entities, and the plaintiffs would have no standing to pursue a separate legal entity. So your package of trusts work very much the way a barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your package of trusts and assign your currencies on paper to that trust package prior to the revaluation of these currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, the holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in all the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. I'll just make mention of one here today. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your trust packages post-RV. Many of our existing clients have expressed a desire to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is from the transfer of funds directly from your asset protection trust to those newly formed entities. We'll also have our tax specialists there to assist you with all kinds of tax issues. We will also have our offshore specialists there as well, and they will show you that by establishing offshore title of certain assets, you can substantially reduce and in some cases eliminate future taxes on the reinvestment of the net proceeds from the revaluation itself. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets after the revaluation for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the general taxing authority of the respective governments, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds at the accounts at those banks. So you're going to want to get money out of the banks, and a substantial amount of it working in other markets. We also know that the general shift from fiat-based to commodity-based Basel III compliant currencies globally will create some very volatile financial markets short term, and you're going to want to get money out of financials, at least a substantial portion of your net worth out of financials and into tangible assets as well. Now, our trust product is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned pre-RV currencies, and then after the revaluation hold financial accounts like bank accounts and investment accounts. That master trust will also be able to manage the gift subtrust and optional trust that we've created if you intend on gifting currencies to family and friends and you want to manage the money for them after the revaluation, which gift subtrust at any time can be converted to a standard subtrust. We have 8 additional standard subtrusts to hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000, depending upon the complexity of their situation and how many assets were going to fund their trust package. But by simplifying this package and merely assigning currencies to a pre-RV, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. There are several ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's not possible, we have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust package to you. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is that once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. With this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting their affairs in order and their trust in place pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your credit card would be substantially less than the $100 a month you would pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in place for all of the reasons that I've discussed here this afternoon. Now, I am going to go to the Q&A in just a moment. And again, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen to the call. But for the benefit of our new callers and those who will be listening to the replay, I'd like to give you just a little bit of information about Trusts Unlimited and why you may want to seriously consider allowing us to assist you. Our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in this area, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have been working together for a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning, and it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so, they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. In point of fact, under our system of civil litigation, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them. And invariably, it's at precisely those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you anticipate a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives both pre and post RV as we understand them. So again, thanks for listening to the call. We're going to go to a Q&A in just a moment. For those of you new to the call who might be interested in getting our initial package, I hope you'll have a pen and paper handy. You're under absolutely no obligation whatsoever by getting our initial package. However, the package does include everything you need should you decide to proceed with establishing one of our asset protection trust packages. You are, of course, free to review the package. Contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to answer those questions, and there will be no consultation fee. Again, we're trying to provide everything you need in order to make an informed decision, to get your affairs in order and your trust in place prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. Now, I'm about to open the Q&A. 2 quick rules on the Q&A. We take no service calls on the Q&A. This is reserved for individuals that are not existing clients that have general questions about our services. And second, for obvious reasons, your name and number must be on the screen in order to participate in the Q&A. So I'm going to go ahead and open the Q&A now. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD Calls and go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for this live call this afternoon, with the exception of the last digit. Rather than dialing a 4, you'll dial a 3, and then use the same access code, which is 739-394-pound. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you can go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out very periodically, pre-RV, but after the reinstatement and revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies, emails may go out as often as daily. So let's go to our Q&A here. Our first caller is from area code 347. That's 347. Go ahead.
Yes, this is Praveen from New York. I have a question now. What if Iraq does all those reforms and all that, and the U.S. NSA still stops it?
And what happens?
And the NSA continually stops it or something. So, I mean,
that's already happened. I mean, at the end of the day, that's why I've got a window that runs all the way to January of 2020, because there are any number of things that theoretically could postpone the reinstatement of the dinar. But at the end of the day, you either believe that the nation-state of Iraq will will fail, or the nation-state of Iraq will emerge as a sovereign, modern, non-sectarian nation. So at that point, they're going to simply have to have an internationally viable currency. So that's why the window is as extended. I've never had a window this wide before, but it's precisely because I'm considering the very thing that you're talking about. There's a lot of players involved right now, and so everything has got to get into alignment. But I continue to believe that it could happen as early as 60 to 90 days, but I just view the worst-case scenario as January 2020, and in as much as I've been in this thing as long as I have, if I have to wait another 6 or 7 months, so be it.
Okay, I have another thing now. If they have already, I heard that there's, at least for years or something, they've or maybe recently, they've had a rate, like a reinstituted rate that's in country. So if that is...
Okay. There has been an increase in value in country, but it's not been a reinstatement.
Okay. Now, I heard that in some circles in Iraq that they're using the like a reinstated currency for some things or something. But if that is the case, then they wouldn't have to. I know previously they said they would have to recalculate the budget and all that. But if they have already somewhat have a reinstituted currency for some things, that may not be. They may not have to do the whole thing.
I have no knowledge of that, although it wouldn't surprise, no matter what we're talking about, there's always a privileged few that somehow enjoy benefits that the rest of us don't. All I know is in order for you and I to make a profit on this, they need to revalue the currency, and before that can happen, they have to officially reinstate the currency, which means every Iraqi national has a stepped-up value for their dinar.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye. Okay, our next caller is area code 312. That's 312. I'm taking a wild guess. That's Les.
Yes, your wild guess is correct. Good afternoon,
What are you
Jim.
What are you going to stump me with today?
Well, I hope you can answer this, because me being second and you saying there's a privileged few that benefit from this thing at the expense of others. Now, the last 2 days I heard 2 different conference calls. One conference call was giving out information without giving out information, without saying that we're close. And so was the other one. But in the way that they give the information out, it's almost as if they're pumping the currency, like, go buy some more, go buy some more. So if one were to go and buy more, would there be an issue at the exchange if you just have more than one would believe? And then...
Well, let me respond by saying when I talked about the privileged few, I was talking rhetorically in a general sense. In other words, it would not surprise me if certain people are benefiting from things that are unethical or even illegal. So that's the one issue. Now, we have clients that have 500,000 dinar, and we have clients that have 500 million dinar. So we have a wide berth of people that have currencies. They're all in the same boat. They're waiting for the reinstitution and then revaluation of the currency. So until that happens, now, one of the reasons I have the wide disparity in the window, usually my window is 60 to 90 days. Now it begins at 60 to 90 and goes all the way to January, precisely for all of the things we're talking about right now.
Well, I know you were rhetorically speaking, and I'm not rhetorically speaking, but
I understand. Yeah, but the way I look at it is the gurus have been to bat 499 times, and they've struck out 499 times. So now they're standing at bat and they're pointing at the fences, and I'm saying no, they're going to strike out again. All right, that's the only way I can look at it. I put zero stock in what they have to say because they've been right exactly 0% of the time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know what else to say, you know?
Yeah, and they're giving us, without giving us the dates, they're telling us, you know, it could be this week, but you have remained firm for the last 60 to 90 days that it's going to be 60 to 90 days because it's getting pushed for whatever the reason might be.
Yeah, for 60 to 90 days, best case scenario.
Yes.
Look,
yeah.
I'd love to be wrong, but I'm not here. I'm not selling, a pie in the sky here. I'm giving you actual numbers.
Right.
I look at from our perspective as purveyors of this trust, I'm looking at it as an advantageous situation because I'm able to tell you and other people, now you still have time to get your affairs in order if you will do your homework. Stop listening to guys whose predictions have been completely wrong and listen to people that have actually been through this, that actually know how it works, and tell you what you need to do to protect this asset. Because, as I've said on the calls, 95% of the people that get a windfall lose it in 3 to 5 years. We're trying to help people avoid that. And that's more important than me throwing a dart at the wall and saying it's going to happen on this day.
Right.
As I've said, I'm not betting on the Iraqi dinar the way I would do a standard international currency option. I'm betting on Iraq. If Iraq is a failed state, then I've lost my investment. If Iraq emerges as a sovereign, non-sectarian functioning nation, then that currency will need to go international, and I've made my money.
Right. Last part of what I have to ask is, did you get any information last week regarding Iran supporting Iraq with the electricity and all? Did you? Well,
one of the things I mentioned in the call here is the meeting, the symposium that Iraq is sponsoring, and the only invitees are Iran and Saudi Arabia, two mortal enemies. So, as I said, basically they're going to be saying to Iraq, to Saudi Arabia, and the other world nations, Iran is a sister nation. We know they've been behaving badly, but like a sibling, we're just going to try to, correct their ways, and we're going to retain a relationship with them. Then they turn to Iran and say, we love you, brother, but guess what? We're dealing with other people, including people you don't like, so suck it up.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, all right?
Have a great day, man.
You too. Okay.
All right, bye-bye.
Well, that was our last caller for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for listening to the call. I hope those of you calling in for the first time and have developed some interest in what we're doing will contact us and get our initial package. Again, you're under absolutely no obligation by receiving the package. It includes everything you need. If you make the unilateral decision to proceed, we're available if you have any questions, and there will be no consultation fee. Our next call is scheduled for next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we will be back next Wednesday afternoon. So have a great week, everyone, and thanks for listening. Bye-bye.